Today, we're going to talk about nootropics. There's so much in terms of brain health and brain optimization out there now. You have executives who want to be working 11 out of 10, and then you have, unfortunately, patients who have cognitive issues, be it a problem with memory or focus or finding words from Lyme disease or stress or Alzheimer's. There's now a lot of help for all those different buckets of patients. We're going to focus on more on the executive, trying to optimize when you're trying to make your brain function better in a pretty normal, healthy brain. We're gonna do plenty of other videos on brain health, so just if you want to hear more, definitely subscribe to the channel, and there'll be more videos coming very soon on that. Let's break it down in about 5 or 6 buckets here in terms of brain health in general, especially when you're trying to optimize it. We have focus. Everybody wants to try to get that natural Adderall without having to be addicted. Now it's even hard to find Adderall. People want to have that focus all the time so they could just be on point. Other parts that they want to work on is they want to make sure that we call it brain energy, that your brain is working the same at 4 o'clock as it was at 9 o'clock in the morning. We want to also balance the neurotransmitters. We want to make sure that your GABA, which is the anti-anxiety component of the brain, is working. We want to make sure dopamine, which is partly your focus and your motivation part, is there. We want to make sure the epinephrine and the norepinephrine are there, which are some of the other neurotransmitters. We want to make sure all those things and your cortisol are all kind of working in a smooth fashion. And there's different ways to achieve that. And I'm going to really focus on a couple of those things today to make sure that you understand where we're going. When you're looking at some of this stuff, what labs should I be looking at and what tests should I be looking at for optimizing brain function? Again, make sure your hormones are good, make sure your sleep is good. Again, that's a separate video. We also make sure that you're doing exercise. Exercise is really good at producing a lot of the chemicals, including BDNF, to help the brain work better. Doing resistance-based or weight-based exercise is better than cardio in terms of improving brain function. That's that part. And then we're going to get into some of the tools now. So let's break it down. So let's start with the tech first, and then we'll get into the nootropics. Some of the better tools that we know work for brain health. Hyperbaric right now is probably the best. 100% oxygen chamber that does help improve the brain when there is an injury, be it from a concussion or a fall or a sport injury or just from inflammation. Doing it multiple times a week optimally in a hard chamber. There are a lot of the soft chambers that are kind of like plastic. They're not as good as the hard metal chambers in terms of getting to higher pressure, but that is by far, in terms of tool, optimally doing it 2 or 3 sessions a week for an hour is probably the best. Doing red light therapy can help brain function. The one that's probably the best right now is doing the intranasal or cranial red lights, and there's different variants out there. There's a product called Serothrive. Vilight has probably the most studies right now. Red light is working because it's calming down inflammation. It's also working because it powers the mitochondria. The brain is one of the biggest areas of mitochondria in the body. We want to work on the mitochondria. We do that through technology, and then we're going to talk about when we talk about supplementation in a couple minutes. So we talk really brief about lifestyle, best ways in terms of helping the brain. If you want to just go for it all, doing things like EBO or plasmapheresis, which helps kind of as an oil change for the body, are really helpful. They're also really expensive, and that's not the primary reason that we do it, but they can be helpful. So we went through the tech part. Now let's get to what most people want to know. What can I take on a daily basis that's going to optimize the brain function? And there are literally now hundreds and hundreds of brain function nootropics out there, and some are definitely much better than others. I'll name 2 brands that I like. I'll name 3. We have Nootopia from BioOptimizers. There is the Qualia products from Neurohacker, and there is a group of products from Thesis. One of the main questions that you need to figure out with most brain boosting nootropics is 2 things. A, some of them have caffeine, some don't, or they have caffeine in some fashion. Either true caffeine, or they have teacrine, or other forms of caffeine. And how does your body respond to caffeine? Are you somebody who, if you have caffeine, you feel worse and you're all jittery and jumpy? Are you somebody, if you do it anywhere after like noon, do you have problems sleeping at night? Or are you somebody who are fast metabolizer where you can do caffeine at 8 o'clock at night and be perfectly fine? If you do fine with caffeine, then you may want to look at one of the caffeine products. There's a new product out now called Paraxanthine, which probably is one of the better ones out there, which eliminates some of the jitteriness. So that's the first thing. Caffeine does improve brain performance. That's number one. Number two, one that we really know can help brain performance is creatine. Creatine is something you're going to probably be taking for your workouts anyway. It does help to help the brain as well. That's number two. Again, we can look at some of the other supplements that are out there. Methylene Blue, by working on the ATP chain, by potentially decreasing the tangles from Alzheimer's, does cross the blood-brain barrier, may increase dopamine. It's something that can help really well with brain function. So those are kind of like the starter pack there, things you need to be aware of. Let's kind of break this down even further. So we talked about focus. Focus could be a lot of different things and that work well for you. One product that works really well for focus is a product called RG3, which is a ginseng derivative. This derivative, race car drivers use for focus, golfers use it, works on different components of the brain. It decreases inflammation. It works in certain areas of the brain that helps with focus. It's that, besides caffeine, maybe one of the simplest things to try. It comes in nasal spray. A lot of times what it'll do is it'll come in a form combined with NAD, which is also can help the brain, as well as B12. And there's now also a version with alpha GPC, which is a choline derivative that helps the brain work really well. So that's something to definitely look into in terms of focus. Other things that help with focus besides Adderall, you can look at modafinil. Modafinil is a prescription medication that works really well for focus. It's probably not as good as Adderall. Some people have a little bit of a brain fog with it. Some people use it very episodically, as Adderall some people will use every day. So that's kind of the focus part of it. When we get into the brain energy part, that is where we talk about more, really, the caffeine component. You want to optimally try to find something that's not pure caffeine. So I'll have yerba mate. I need one right now. I'll have teacrine, or I'll have paraxanthine. Have a much purer form of the caffeine, which is not going to make you as jittery, but help the brain work better. That's in terms of brain energy. You want to look at things that are going to work on the mitochondria. It may have things like ribose in it. It may have CoQ10 in it. It may have other products like urolithin A, even though urolithin A is very expensive. Those are things that you're looking for in products that have brain energy. The third bucket, which is just to improve memory. And memory is probably one of the tougher things to come through, because it's got to be usually a combination of different processes. You want to first of all, you want to get the mitochondria going with the things I mentioned before, NAD, CoQ10. Some people are using MOTS-c now, which is an injectable peptide. Another product I didn't mention yet is prodrome, which is plasmalogens, which is the outside layer of the cell that has been shown to help with improved memory in lay people and help patients who have potentially things like Alzheimer's. So you have all those different types of all those types of supplements are out there. You also want to help the mitochondria. You want to decrease inflammation, where everything from like low-dose naltrexone will work. BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4 or TB500 are really good for memory issues. You want to increase the blood flow to the brain. That's where a product like Uridine comes in. Uridine increases the blood flow to the brain, and that will help with that component of it. Then you also want to increase the neuroplasticity, the connections between the brain, and that is where you're looking for things. Again, there's a lot of different things that do that now. Look at curcumin, berberine, cerebrolysine, which is also given in a nose spray called P21. All those different products will increase the neuroplasticity. So when you're looking at things that are going to help improve your memory, you want to find something that's going to decrease the inflammation. You want to find things that are going to help the mitochondria. You want to find things that are going to increase the blood flow of the brain. You want to find the things that are going to increase interconnections of the brain, which is neuroplasticity. It's a much more complicated type process. There are a lot of ones out there now. I would really look into the thesis or look into one of the Notopi ones for memory, or probably the better one or two that are out there. More specific, stronger things. The best things out there for memory and just by themselves. Again, cerebrolysine, which can be done through either IV or self-injections. Exogenous ketones, which are the ketones produced by the liver, you can now have as a drink. The plasmalogens for prodrome. Those are things that are very, very powerful in terms of helping boost your memory and boost brain function. And the last component of this is do things that stimulate your brain. It could be brain games. It could be just doing a crossword puzzle. It could be doing things like Lumosity or other things that are really stimulating the brain all the time. It's not just sitting there watching Netflix all the time. This is the start of videos of all the questions I get regarding nootropics. There's a lot of information there. I try to break it down as simple as I can. You have focus, memory, brain energy, as well as just the overall brain function. There's different things, they're treated differently. And everybody works differently because it's also going to be a component of how much are you sleeping? What is your testosterone level? Do you have a history of concussion? It's not as straight as that. One of the things I will mention in terms of brain nootropics is two things. Again, I already talked about the caffeine. You understand the caffeine level. The other piece is you need to understand when you're taking the stronger medication, especially if you're looking to take the things like racetams, like paracetam, and so on, you want to have at least one choline source. Alpha GPC is a choline source. Citicoline is a GPC source. It needs the GPC to help the brain work and give it its benefit without totally depleting its choline. So that's something you need to be aware of. Racetams were really in vogue 2 or 3 years ago. Now, because the other supplements have come out, they're not as popular, but things that you definitely still want to be aware of. Any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. And if you like what we're putting out there, feel free and subscribe to the channel.